Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Lancaster County Council to order. I'd ask that the clerk note for the record that a quorum of council is present, that the public notice of the meeting, including the meeting agenda, has been posted the required length of time in the lobby of the county administration building and on the county website, and that the news media was notified of the meeting time and place. I'd like to welcome you to your county council meeting. I would ask that you take a moment to turn off or place on vibrate any cell phones or pagers. Thank you for not wearing hats or caps in the council chambers, and please be considerate of others in the room by refraining from conversations during the meeting. I ask that you please stand and join the council for the Pledge of Allegiance brought to us tonight by, I've covered my paper up, Mr. Graham.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we give thanks for this beautiful day. We give thanks for all the people that have come to this council meeting. We give thanks for this council, and it's a meeting to do the business of the guide us to do the business of this great county. We ask us in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of agenda. Do we have any changes or deletions to the agenda?
We'll have to have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Graham and a second from Ms. McGriff. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. All those opposed, like sign. It passes unanimously. We approved the agenda as submitted. Okay, now it's time for citizens' comments. Please bear in mind that this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council members. Please speak into the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. Our first is Jennifer Sabatino.
My name is Jennifer Sabatino, 6070 Chimney Bluff Road. Good evening, council members. Thank you for your time and consideration this evening. On behalf of Riverchase Estates community, many are here present tonight. I and Elaine Bowman are here to present a petition of over 169 signatures. At this time, I'm going to present the petition. We, the undersigned residents of Riverchase Estates, are writing to formally petition Lancaster County to take necessary action regarding the development agreement with LGI. We strongly urge Lancaster County to mandate that LGI releases the funds and land for the fire station regardless of the 250 certificate of occupancy, as stated in section 4.05 of the contract. This is crucial for the safety and well-being of the Riverchase Estates and the surrounding areas. We are asking the county to enforce the language in section 3.03 A2A4 between LGI and the county of Lancaster agreed upon on March 31st, 2008. Second, mandate that Lancaster County reallocate the $8,200 rooftop fee from the county's general fund to a reserve fund for public safety and safety specifically for the Van Wyck Fire District. Request that Lancaster County requires that LGI, the Riverchase Estates Board, meet with the residents of Riverchase Estates on a quarterly basis to ensure transparency, accountability, and general welfare of the community as suggested by the residents of Riverchase Estates and supported by the members of the Lancaster County Planning Commission on the meeting April 16, 2024. That is the end of the petition. On a personal note, I have been a licensed RN and family nurse practitioner for over 20 years in trauma medicine. I worked 2 years in the burn unit. You would never want to see what I witnessed and provided patient care for. Not only utter despair and suffering, the loss of loved ones, children, newborns, grandparents, sisters, close friends, emergency responders, and so much more. to no fault of the brave, amazing firefighters and emergency responders who risk their lives every day for our communities. But I will say, lack of important resources. We need to move forward with better quality standards in our laws and UDOs to better protect the communities you serve. Better resources to help our emergency responders do their jobs safely and effectively. In closing, it's the County Council's job as a legislative government branch to act in the best interest for communities regardless of contracts. You have the power to do what is best. LGI as a developer is to act in the best interest of their community, as well as be an active participant and a good neighbor. This clearly has not been demonstrated previously and today. And this all starts with effective communication. Please take the time to not just hear, but listen and understand our concerns. Look through our lens. We are a wonderful community service-driven community. We deeply care. Hoping for positive change moving forward for the betterment of our communities. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Ms. Elaine Bullman, you can give it to the clerk to council.
Hello, Elaine Bullman, 4166 Persimmon Road. Hello, County Council. Thank you for hearing my comments. I speak to you tonight with my personal perspective. I have some questions for the County Council members. Do any of you live in a community where the response times for fire and EMS can be up to 20 minutes? Do you live in a community where there are not enough fire and EMS to appropriately service everyone equally? Do you fear that if you have an aneurysm, stroke, or heart attack, or if your child gets seriously ill or injured because of the lack of these services being available in a timely manner, they could die? Do you fear another house burning to the ground in your neighborhood? I have answered yes to every one of these questions. I worry that if I had the need for emergency services, those services would arrive too late. It is because of this that the residents of Riverchase Estates are requesting that the county asks LGI to release the funds and land for the fire station, regardless of the 250 certificates of occupancy as stated in Section 4.05 of the contract. This is critical for the safety and well-being of Riverchase Estates and the surrounding areas. The County Administrator, Dennis Marstall, has stated the firehouse can be built at a meeting Jennifer Sabatino and I had with him on August 9th, 2024. A fire truck can be purchased. The county needs to find the resources for a volunteer firefighter, equipment and monies to support the firehouse. We have heard the excuse that the county wants paid lines. We have existed for 20 years without paid lines and can put volunteers in until resources are found and the county plans better. The county has failed to do their job for the last 16 years. This development has been in the works. If the county had done any planning at all, some of the $90 fire fee and the revenue from the rooftop fee, currently $8,200, would have been set aside over the years for this project, and we would not be in this position. Additionally, money could have been taken from the other public safety funds. The county knew there was a contractual agreement to build a firehouse on Riverside Road, yet took no action whatsoever to move forward. Until Jennifer Sabatino and I started investigating, asking questions, setting up meetings with planning and county administrators, not 1 ounce of thought was being given to this firehouse. Not one. We would be at ground zero still today if our community did not step up and use their voices to start pushing the county forward for this firehouse. It is time for the county to find the resources to build this firehouse. It is time for the county to pressure LGI to donate the land, donate the money now, and for the county to immediately push forward and stop making excuses as to why this cannot be done. This firehouse benefits the entire Van Wyck Fire District in a county that is strapped for emergency services. It is key to supporting our fabulous Van Wyck Fire District firefighters who are challenged daily with limited resources. Regardless of the contract between the county and LGI, there is a desperate need and it has been ignored. It gives the impression that the council prioritizes growth over safety. We speak for the entire surrounding community, not just Riverchase Estates. We want our friends and neighbors in the Van Wyck Fire District to have peace of mind that in an emergency, the county made the right decision to put safety over growth. Thank you for your consideration of our petition, and thank you, Terry Graham, for your continued support of our community. Thank you all.
Thank you. Dawn Foster.
Dawn Foster, 6367 Chimney Bluff Road. Good evening. I am a former Lancaster County public elementary teacher. As part of the social studies curriculum, I was responsible for teaching my students about our local government, the structure, the jobs, the responsibilities. The class held a mock election, created a classroom government structure, and briefly, or as long as I could stand it, ran the classroom. While it taught the students about our city government, the bigger outcome was the community building that happened. The students who were elected into the town council began to think and act for the greater good of the class. I am here today asking you to do the same. The residents of Riverchase are asking you to require LGI to meet with the Riverchase Estates community on a quarterly basis. As elected representatives of our community, you hold a vital responsibility to act in the best interests of the residents who entrusted you with their votes. In 2008, Lancaster County signed a contract with LGI to develop Riverchase Estates. In Section 3.03 of this contract, it states that the county may apply laws adopted after the execution of the agreement to the development of the property only if the county council holds a public hearing and determines that the laws are essential to public health, safety, or welfare. Requiring LGI to meet with the residents of Riverchase Estates allows opportunity for the community to express concerns and ask questions pertaining to the general welfare of the community. The residents of Riverchase have tried through the years to communicate with LGI and have had very little to no success. LGI hires a homeowners association firm to act as a liaison to the community, which has proven to be frustrating and an unreliable means of communication, sometimes waiting weeks for a response. Our own Van Wyck fire chief was unable to contact LGI to handle an issue with a fire alarm 2 weeks ago at our amenity center gym. In addition, LGI has a board in place specifically for Riverchase Estates community. We have never been privy to who those people are or have had any way of ever contacting them. Imagine having your greatest investment, your house, and not having the ability to communicate with the very people who can directly affect the value of your home. This is our reality. You have the authority to adjust this contract if it means safeguarding the interests of the very people who elected you. Just as the development schedule for LGI has been amended through the years, you can amend this contract to ensure that LGI operates with transparency and accountability by communicating with the residents as recommended by the Lancaster County Planning Commission during the April 16th meeting. Let us remember that our community voices matter. By requiring regular meetings between LGI and the residents of Riverchase, we can foster and collaborate a respectful relationship that benefits us all. Thank you for being here for the City of Lancaster and for considering our petition today.
Thank you. Mr. David Basri.
I'm David Basri, 4099 Persimmon Road in Riverchase. My comment should be fairly brief, as I'm going to limit myself to the agenda item 8B, Resolution 1286. As I said at the Committee of the Whole meeting, as far as I can tell, Riverchase householders are paying about double what anyone else is for an impact fee in the county. That's just the way the contract is, but I think at this point it's appropriate if some of that money's be directed to things that are more directly appropriate for the community. I'm also the board chair for the Van Wyck Fire District. This year we hired our first employee, and the fee money was able to pay for bringing on one employee, and nobody thinks that's a best practice, and equipping them. There was nothing left except basic operating expenses and no money for special projects. If we were to bring on a second employee, which everyone thinks is the right thing to do, we're going to have to raise the fee. But if there's a source of funds that can fund the equipment and so on for an employee, then we can reduce the amount of the fee increase that's going to be necessary to do that. And that benefits not only Riverchase, but it benefits all of the fee payers because we can limit the amount that we're asking for when we do that. If you earmark the money for those kinds of non-recurring expenses, you know, right now we're putting nothing in the reserve and we have no money for special projects to improve the station or do anything else. So earmarking that money would go a long way towards allowing the department both to improve its station and to keep the fee down for all of the fee payers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's end of citizens' comments. We'll move on to special presentations at this point in time. First, we have a proclamation for parents as teachers presented to Ashley Melton, parents as teacher supervisor for the Lancaster County First Steps, and Brandon Craig, director, Southside Early Childhood Center, Lancaster County School District. If y'all could come forward. I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation, and then I'll come down and present it to you. Whereas the concept of parents as teachers, PAT, celebrating 40 years of service as an evidence-based parent education and support program designed to empower parents as their child's first teacher. And whereas research shows that greater parent involvement is a critical link in the child's development of learning skills, including reading and writing, and whereas PAT helps parents understand their child's development and connects them to the resources they need to make the best choices for their family. And whereas PAT and their local affiliates help build strong communities, thriving families, and children that are healthy, safe, and ready to learn by matching parents and caregivers with trained professionals who make regular personal home visits during a child's earliest year in life, from prenatal through kindergarten. And whereas PAT helps children to develop, learn, and to grow to realize their full potential, and now therefore, I, Brian Carnes, in behalf of Lancaster County Council, do hereby proclaim November the 8th, 2024 as National Parents as Teachers Day. You. Thank you so much. Is there something y'all would like to say? Tell us a little bit about how the program works, or?
Hello, I'm Tamika Wright, and I'm the Executive Director for Lancaster County First Steps. I supervise Ashley Melton, and she is our PAT supervisor. And here we have Brandon Craig, and he is the Director of Southside Early Childhood Center. We are the only two agencies in the county that provide this valuable service for our residents here in the county. We believe that it's very important for parents to understand that they are their very first and most important teachers of their children. So the home visits that are rendered to the parents happen weekly, and the parents, they've really had a great response for the program. It's been going on for years and years, so we're so very excited to be able to receive recognition from the county and to have our very own Parents as Teachers Day named November the 8th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to our second item, recognition of Employee of the Quarter for 2024, third quarter. Mr. Marstall is going to present those. And we had a banner number of people that were nominated for Employee of the Quarter. So,
Yeah, so every quarter, You know, we had a little conversation and on the agenda tonight talking about first responders. So certainly everyone recognizes one of the key county functions is public safety, but certainly there are a lot more services from everything from the animal shelter in the airport to zoning. So we cover it all in Lancaster County. And so we do like to highlight the work of our county employees day in and day out. A lot of people are the unsung heroes. A lot of them you see every day out and about on the street. And so we do have a slide up here that shows all the people who are nominated. And so if some of them are with us tonight, on this first group, Monique Beasley, she might have just, there she is. Come on up and get a certificate. And if you'll stand over here a second, Monique's in our finance. So again, one of the behind the scenes, but very important. I don't know if Paul Blass is here. And then I want to recognize, if you see on the screen, Britt Blackman is part of our public safety. What we do is we take nominations from employees and we do it in two categories, the general government as well as public safety. It's easy to recognize public safety, but we want to highlight on both sides of the general government. Katie Bodo? There she is, yes. Come on up from our sheriff's office. And then on our next slide, we have another group. Sherry Brady's not here from EMS. Let's see. Oh, Chris Clouden from our Parks and Recreation. Even some of our directors are getting recognized. Deidre Brown is here, so we want to recognize her also from our finance department. I don't know if William Falkenberry's here. I don't see him here. That's that group. And then we got another group we're going to pull up on the screen for you. So you can see Travis. I don't see Travis from the sheriff's office. Chelsea here? Let's see Chelsea. And then is Daniel here from our building? And Jenna? No. All right, we'll go on to the next group, who we have from some different departments. Ken Harris. Is Ken here from our coroner? There he is. Ken's here from our coroner's office. Riley James is here from our IT department. Norrell Harris. Let's see. And then last one in this group, we got Donna Lawrence. Is Donna here? If not, don't see Donna. And then our last group to recognize tonight for their outstanding work and being recognized is Andrew Simon. I don't know if Andrew's, nope. And then on this group you see up here, Stephanie Snowden, even our deputy administrator, got a nomination this quarter. Ryan McNeil. And then Brenda Thompson is here, our own Director of Communications and Marketing. So then what we do as we have these groups here, then we do recognize one employee of the quarter, one for public safety and one for general government. Our recognition tonight for public safety is actually not here to attend, but that'd be Sherry Brady, so recognize her work and recognition. And then the winner of the general government category is here, and so I'd like to take a minute to highlight what his nomination was about. It said, he is always respectful to everyone, even those of us who may be IT dummies. Then it says, he communicates openly and transparently with team members and actively participates in team meetings. He consistently meets and exceeds performance targets and goals, and he keeps our IT processes safe and keeps it from not being complicated. So that clearly goes to Riley James. Congratulations. On Employee of the Quarter. Congratulations. Let's get a group picture. Can I stand on
On behalf of council, I'd like to say thank you to all of our employees and congratulations on being nominated by your peers. Okay, we're going to move on to item 6C, discussion of capital improvement plan funding with general obligation bonds. Ms. Pervuzenak.
Mr. Chairman, as she comes forward and is here, I want to highlight we've had some conversation about investing in the future, certainly in public safety. As you're going to hear tonight, through our capital improvement plan is a way by which we do fund different capital, the bigger needs that will be identified tonight. So we do that in a couple different ways. Department directors certainly outline, council priorities outline, but future spending on a 10-year basis. And so part of our plan tonight is to give council thoughts on some of the projects coming forward, but how we can do rolling investment. When people say, is the county thinking of the future? Are we planning for the future? This is how we demonstrate that. And then part of this also you'll see is a conversation about fire apparatus purchases going forward as well. So I'll turn it over to our budget director, Ms. Pervuzenak.
Thank you, Mr. Marstoll. Good evening, council, staff. Tonight, I'm Jamie Pervuzenak, Budget Director. Tonight, you will be receiving a special presentation on Council's 10-year capital improvement plan and a proposed funding strategy for both fire and non-fire projects that are within your plan. First and foremost, I want to thank briefly some individuals who helped shape this deck and put this vision onto paper. Obviously, Mr. Marstoll, back and forth doing questions and answers, Ms. Sabrina Harris, Ms. Monique Beasley, and I'd also like to extend a thanks to Tim Green, Jeff Cato, and Christopher Clouden for their work on the actual project costs. Thanks for indulging me there. Tonight's agenda, I'll provide you a brief recap on Council's 2021-2031 capital improvement plan. As you know, you are in your 4th year of the 10-year plan. We will discuss a borrowing strategy for both non-fire and fire service projects. We'll talk a little bit about your debt capacity, what does that mean, and that is as of the FY23 audit. You'll see some suggested projects with some concept estimates as of today's dollars, both non-fire and fire projects. And then I'll turn the floor over to our Deputy County Administrator, Stephanie Snowden, to discuss the fire piece of tonight's presentation. So on June 24th, as part of your FY25 budget process, you adopted a revision to your 10-year capital improvement plan. On the county's strategic plan, the capital improvement plan aligns to the infrastructure and public safety strategic priorities. And as a gentle reminder, this is a plan, it's a roadmap, it's a guide. So when you adopted the ordinance back in June, council did not obligate or authorize funding attached to the plan. Just projects, just planning. There are a variety of funding sources that are attached to a capital improvement plan. Oftentimes, you can fund these projects with taxes. You could use a pay-as-you-go philosophy as well attached to that. Impact fees, you could use savings, fund balance. You could borrow with different debt instruments to fund some of these projects, general obligation bonds, revenue bonds. And in some cases, you can create a special service district that has its own assessment fee, et cetera. For the purposes of tonight, we are proposing borrowing on a more regular interval process every 2 years, dubbed as or called a rolling capital improvement plan. So this means you're going to issue debt on the even years or every 2 years, with the end goal meaning to stabilize that debt service millage levy. So we would propose starting this plan on July 1, 2025, which is part of your FY26 budget process. We would then, as you know, we're retiring existing principal and interest payments, but as we're retiring over time, we would then propose borrowing to cap you at a 9 mil. So to stabilize and or reset the millage over time. So here's the debt service millage history. This is the third column. And so this is some historical data that you see up here. So in FY '20, the millage levy was 11.25. That means whatever that principal and interest debt service payment is, divided by your assessed valuation, is what you have to levy or collect to make that principal and interest payment for the year. And so then you could see over time, and then 21, that milli rate went down to 7.60. So you can think to yourself, well, maybe we retired some debt that year, but that creates some additional capacity, right, to add more borrowing because of that decrease. Does that make sense? So what we are proposing for FY '26 is a total county millage of 9. And so within that, you have some flexibility. Perhaps you want to put aside 6 mills to go towards non-fire projects and 3 mills towards fire, but to never go over the 9, level set and keep it stable over time. And as you're retiring debt, you have an ability to add on more. You also have the constitutional debt limitation, which in bold, and this is as of the FY '23 audit, you'll have more information once we get into FY '24, but in bold, that tells us the 37.4 million that's one ceiling. I can't go above this without going to the voters to get permission to do so. The 42.5 is that 8% rule. So your millage value, the assessed value in FY '23 was 531 mills. So if you take 8% of that, you get the 42 million number. You can't go above that. That's your ceiling. So this first series of projects, we convened staff to prioritize, to gather some concept estimates for what would be non-fire projects to go forward as far for borrowing. These are currently in your CIP. They do not have an identified funding source attached to them. Mr. Cato for the Joshua Tree, he feels after doing some legwork the last 3 weeks that 2.1 is a solid concept estimate number. And then this is prioritized. So then we could either go Linwood or we could go to Kershaw. Linwood purchase of the site, or Kershaw we own and build out that convenience site. Park and Rec, Mr. Clouden provided some great context here to get to that number. Those projects are in priority order. And then ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning System, is something that you've heard about, but we'll talk a lot more about as part of the FY '26 budget. So that total bond package proposed to you is $8 million for non-fire projects. And so at this time, I'll turn the floor over to Deputy County Administrator Stephanie Snowden to unpack the fire projects for you.
Good evening, Vice Chairman and members of council. So if you look at the screen, you will see that the Fire Commission's top 11 projects are included in this number, as well as a fire truck for Station 3, and that would be about $8.765 million. And then apparatus, radios, and the UEB SSRIT bags, which is basically a universal emergency breathing safety system that would allow firefighters in distress to actually get oxygen. So these are the priorities that were presented back in August by the commission, and so included in the year one concept estimate would be about a little over $9 million. Any questions?
I do. The Fire Commission top 8 projects, you're going to have to remind us of what those 8 were.
Okay, they were, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. So that would be the 1994 Chevrolet Squad 29 replacement plan, and the another 1998 KME Ford truck tanker as part of the 25 replacement plan. the 1998 KME Ford tanker, which is also another one, and then a fourth one, which would be part of the replacement plan, as well as a 2004 Spartan Schmiel engine, and then a 2007 Pierce engine, number 16 replacement plan, and then finally 2004 Ford F550 Rescue 4x4, which is 19 a replacement plan. So Mr. Marstall and I were very deliberate about taking their wishes and their priority.
They're all apparatus, so it's all
Yes, they're all-
trucks, engines, apparatus.
So it's the 8 plus the Station 3 truck?
Yes.
Don't Station 3 already have a truck already?
And so you need to clarify, Ms. Snowden, are we talking the 8 products, or did you have the 3 more for 11? Are you?
There are 8.
8, okay. 8,
Revised it, yes, there are 8.
And then the Station 3 truck would be another purchase.
Okay, they don't have a truck now for that station?
They,
I thought they have one already up there.
they do have one in there, is my understanding, but then that's where we can take that and move that around to other places, other locations. So it gives us some flexibility.
Not taking it out of service?
Yeah.
Just going to remove it?
Correct, yeah. We wouldn't look to take, within all these, we would probably resell some of them as an option actually for us, even given their age. But then we could also reuse, or if we have a need for another one, we can repurpose.
Are there any other questions for Ms.
We
Snowden?
do have another slide there to highlight, to wrap this part up for just a presentation, no decisions tonight.
So that was 9 trucks for $6 million or something?
990.
$7 million.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
9 trucks.
9 trucks.
There would be a total of 9, yes.
Okay, that just sounds expensive to me. I guess they're expensive.
They are just in today's dollars, 1.2 for one fire truck and a 3-year wait.
These weren't fire trucks. These were just,
Some of them were tankers.
Well, the one included the fire truck for Station 3,
okay.
the 1.2.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the last purchase, we bought about 14 or 15 for that same amount, but that was before COVID.
So this is a synopsis of what the millage borrowing scenario would look like for you. It considers retiring existing principal and interest payments, and you see that cap, the millage rate levy of 9. So that principal and interest payment, that annual debt service payment would not exceed 9 mils, right? And so these are the various bonding amounts that you would have, and obviously that's declining over time because you're acquiring new debt, more amortization schedules over time, so the totals are going down. But the first year is what are the projects that we propose to you tonight. So the total is the 15.3. And that's through the life of the plan. So what we are looking for you tonight is to provide input on this scenario, this borrowing scenario.
Ms. Pavuznak, I want to say, we don't need decisions tonight, but this is also based on a program where this is only 7-year debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
It's a
any
7-year
package we would do
maturity
would be for 7 years.
So just to clarify, so that would be 7 years from the FY '34 would be the last year that we renew at the 9, so that it continues then 7 years to pay that one off, the very last one. Is that correct? She's nodding, yes, okay. And then, so that will take us through FY '41. Would this plan then take into account all the needs that we have for our fire station and general obligations and things like that throughout that time period? Or are we now adding additional things during that period that's going to compound the needs that we have for a county?
Yeah,
Just
and
thinking strategically
yeah.
down the road.
I hear what you're saying. So in those odd years, we would reconvene on what are the priorities and the projects, revisit the estimates, and then prepare the bond package for that next even year. So these numbers are all in today's dollars, but you have the opportunity to revisit the numbers, revisit the projects. But these are current projects within your capital improvement plan that do not currently have a funding source attached to them.
Okay. So we're addressing some of the needs, but we're not going to be addressing all of the needs.
The other needs have other funding sources. So you would have the capital project sales tax is funding some of your needs. So this is addressing just what we don't have identified funding for.
Okay.
So they very well could add some projects down the line, I mean, in years
Yes,
to
ma'am.
come, because these numbers could very well change.
That is correct, ma'am, because when you revisit this as part of the FY26 budget process, you also could potentially adopt a revision to your capital improvement plan, depending on whatever capital assets are requested during the budget process. So yes, it's moving. It's a living document.
Well, and to be clear is that while we've identified 9 apparatus for fire alone, the true list from the Fire Commission is 21 apparatus, and that's where you get up to 26 million.
That's where we get to the FY34, where we're really addressing all of them?
Well, so if you would do 9 in the first year of FY26 as part of that 15 million, then in that second year, we see the second package in FY28 for 8 million. Part of that could be 4 fire trucks on down the list, and you keep working down the list, but mix it in with general government needs as well.
But that 20-some list is going to add and grow every year.
Absolutely, and
as we go, the
Absolutely.
need will continue to grow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why part of the conversation about how do you balance this out between our current general obligation debt service, where we've seen it go as high as 11.25, down to 6, and where we're saying, can we get it steady around 9? But that also is factoring in how do we approach the fire service? Is it a county-wide millage? It's however you pay for it. You do general obligation bonds, and the millage is part of that, or you separate it out through a fire
What's
millage.
your time frame on making a decision one way or the other?
Well, it depends if you want to go the fire district route, just have a capital for fire. That would take 3 votes to create the fire district, and then to go out to market to actually get the money to do the purchases. So that really is generally still talking a March or April timeframe if you want to go that route just for fire. If you want to go the general obligation route for $8 million, we can move that quicker just within the general obligation, the general government part of it.
So what's in this package we can change or revise or add to at this point?
Everything. And so so these are what are proposed, or what we've always, when we came with you with the CIP 4 years ago, this are some things that we've been identified on the horizon. Certainly Parks and Recreation needs, certainly convenience site, which is our transfer stations for waste, if people aren't familiar with the convenience site word, but also identifying at least part of this fire truck with all the maintenance we now need is having another facility. So that's flexible. Then the slide that Ms. Pravusnak's going to show is what's also on the horizon for you to start considering all that. When you think about our needs going forward, even emergency medical services, new stations that have not been accounted for within the capital project sales tax. We have 2 stations there, but more parks and recreation needs. Certainly the sheriff's office, the sheriff has requests for building and substation, and then again, continuing on with our solid waste. And so those are our list of needs. I won't say wants, but you can consider them wants as well. But looking out.
This is the priority list that's in front of us, the project names, the 5 projects. Those are considered our priority.
From staff that's been identified at least 2 years ago.
And when we do this, I want to know this, we're jumping from 6 to 9 on the county debt. That's a 3%. 3 mills jump. So I'd like to know what we're looking at is costing our citizens, because we do the budget every year and we try to keep, excuse me, we try to hold our taxes down for our citizens, but we're jumping 3 mills here. I want to know what this is going to cost them also.
Yeah, and I would remember that it's a reassessment year also.
It is.
I mean, so,
But we said from 6 to 9 mills. It does not necessarily have to be an increase.
Get what they want,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct, and it'll depend upon how
Explain
big the
that.
bond package is.
It depends on the bonds.
Yeah, how much debt we take on will then be converted to what our principal and interest payment is based upon that debt. And then that's how you get back into the millage for debt service.
But the plan that you're using is based off of the 9,
Correct.
so it's the 3.
Because what we've seen from the history is that we've been on these
But
swings.
this list could change. It does not have to be
Correct.
the list. We make that determination, right?
Right.
As far
Absolutely.
as how many mills we want to increase it. So it
right.
does not necessarily have to be 9
Right.
mills, okay?
I just think,
and you can always decrease the general budget by that might, keep it a no tax increase.
Yes, we can.
and that's how we've been able to do our tax, knowing that it's gone from 11.25 mils and been going down because we've been rolling debt off. So we haven't had to use as much of the property tax to support the debt service. But we're saying that so the capital good planning is understanding what's on the horizon. So we're trying to give you a picture of some of the needs identified for future service delivery.
So for the record, what I'd like to see is the financial implications of what we're talking about up to the 3 millage rate to the 9, then align that with the needs and priorities that we've already identified. And then for future years going forward, that we're identifying what additional things are going to be required that will pop up, to Ms. McGriff's point, that we haven't yet identified, but strategically we know the life cycle of certain equipment or machines are going to come up during this time period, we're going to need it. That way we're getting a holistic picture of the entirety of what the needs are going to be, so that we can start addressing them holistically as opposed to in little bits and pieces.
Well, and also to Mr. Marstall's point that, or, talking 6 to 9, we can also put that on in, a 2 or 3 year increment, so you're not going from 6 to 9 automatically.
Yep.
That way it allows us to sort of ease into it.
Well, yeah, because
But there will be a decision point about having the dedicated revenue stream for debt service on fire apparatus. Because we've expressed some of the concern about how you fund the fire countywide, knowing that the apparatus will be used in different parts of the county. And so a county fire millage, countywide, will have to be part of the conversation too.
So we've been talking about this for a long time, so when is a decision point?
If you're ready for one, I'll be.
We're not ready.
So, well, the decision point comes when you finalize the amount of borrowing you want to do.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm not ready until we understand exactly what we're doing with Jose's point and us understanding what the mill value will be as we move forward and what the projects will be potentially, because we just can't say we're going to do this and not knowing strategically what's going to happen down the road.
And I'd like to see what other options there are, because I know we talked about looking at it based off of the financials and what we can get based off of a bond package, but really the way we should be looking at this, in my perspective, is what are the needs and what are the things that we need to do, and then figure out how we can resolve those needs.
I think if we can get some agreement, I think we've heard the need about fire apparatus. And so then how do you look at that in the context with the general obligation part of government?
I agree, and
So
I
trying
think
to-
that's part of what we need to start looking at, that it's not just what are the bonds or what are the things, it's we're going to have to make cuts in areas so that we can prioritize the needs, because we just keep on talking about what additional funding mechanisms we can use, which is code for how much more can we tax people, when we're already looking at 2 big projects that are on the ballot this year. We're looking at potentially adding for next year. we got to start looking at it in a different perspective and start looking at it differently, to Mr. Mosteller's point.
Okay, do we have any further discussion? If not, thank you.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Okay, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda items 7A, 7B, and 7C.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, unanimous vote, 5-0. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8A on our non-consent agenda, Resolution 1285-R2024, a resolution to amend the second master multi-county park agreement between Chesterfield County and Lancaster County, dated as of October the 1st, 2018. So as to add to the agreement property located in Chesterfield County, owned and/or operated by Centerfield Cooper Solar LLC, Ogburn Solar LLC, Sandhills Solar LLC, Pine Gate Renewals LLC, Oakhurst Energy Development LLC, and Duke Energy Progress LLC. Mr. Marstall and Ms. Burke DuPont.
Mr. Vice Chairman and council members, this is a unique opportunity where we structure economic development deals as part of our work with the Department of Commerce over the past years, where when different companies make investments in different counties, we're able to reap the benefits through their enhanced tax payments. And so having a multi-county park between us and Chesterfield County means that when someone locates, we agree to bring them on. And so under this arrangement, if a company, this one is a solar company, is choosing to locate in Chesterfield County, what it means is that we would then realize a 1% of their property tax through this agreement. And so it's by resolution where we agree that we want them within our multi-county park, as we call it, together, and then we split the fee in lieu of taxes based upon this percentage of what county it's located. And since it's not in Lancaster but in Chesterfield, we will get a little bit of residual from that agreement.
Okay, do we have any questions?
I have one. Just as long as they keep those solar panels in Chesterfield, I'm happy.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Graham and a second by Ms. McGriff. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Passes 5-0. Okay, we move on to Resolution 1286-R2024, a resolution authorizing the designation of building fees authorized by the Riverchase Estates Development Agreement to be dedicated for non-recurring public safety needs. Mr. Marstall and Ms. Harris.
Mr. Vice Chairman and council members, we discussed at your October 16th Committee of the Whole meeting about the Riverchase Development Agreement. Within that agreement, we highlighted that part of that statement says that the development agreement acknowledges that the development imposes certain burdens and costs on the county, as noted in the language below, which is part of the agenda item tonight, but it highlights that as part of this, that county council will collect what is called a building fee. Back then, when this was established in 2008, the building fee started out $4,900 and escalates 3% or by a current percentage of the consumer price index, not to exceed $9,000. Today, the building fee per dwelling unit is $8,255.86. That money over time, and approximately 149 dwellings have paid that building fee to date since 2008. That fee per the development agreement says it's at the sole discretion of county council that it goes into the general fund. And that's what we've been doing. We've been depositing that amount into the general fund. It has helped with such things as when we've added more sheriff's deputies, over the years as we've done EMS, 911, coroner's office investment, but general government is what the general fund is supported. From our conversation last CAL meeting, it was suggested council would be interested in earmarking those funds for a specific public safety fund and to not have it go directly into general government fund. So presented for you within the resolution today, it stipulates that it would be dedicated to a public safety fund within the general fund for non-recurring public safety expenses. The public safety fund would be utilized to address the non-recurring needs of one or multiple public safety departments, including the Sheriff's Office, Coroner's Office, Emergency Medical Services, Lancaster Fire Rescue and Emergency Management, and Public Safety Communications E911. Based upon the fees paid today at their different rates that have varied over time, and based upon what is still left in the number of units for the first phase of Riverchase, this could generate approximately $1.9 million going forward. That's based on the current rates and if all the phase 1 is developed out. There is plans for phase 2 and a plan for phase 3 as well, but if it's council's desire to earmark those funds within the general fund for non-recurring public safety, this resolution would allow you to do that. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
Well, there's a lot of questions. I had 3 questions at the COW that I asked for information. I'd like to know if I've got any answers. One was, did anybody, there's been a lot of reference to community meetings and making developers meet with the residents. And I asked that somebody look at York County and see if they are doing that. Did anybody look at York County from the staff?
Excuse me.
I asked that specific question.
And some of that information was sent in reference to it. We have not been able to verify how that process works yet, and if it does, the structure by which.
You can't call somebody in York County and ask them, like the planning director, can't she call the planning director in York County and get an answer?
And there was some conference at a meeting on Friday, a different meeting on Friday. But yes, we can explore that some more, but we don't have a structure in place.
Well,
Generally,
what are they doing?
what does York County do?
Yes.
That's what I'm still trying to understand, how they've made that happen in terms of how do you have a legal contract with a HOA and a local government for a set period of time to force these meetings. And usually what has been talked about is you do it on the front end. For instance, right now, Riverchase is going through phase 2 and phase 3, where part of the zoning conversation for UDO is that you do have to have public meetings related to a change in development or whatever. So that is standard development practice across the country. And those are where the public meetings have been generally held, because generally they're on site or nearby where the development change is happening.
I mean, we do those for rezonings. We have community meetings, but the ongoing community meetings for a developer in a HOA like this, I understood that York County had something on their books that they make them do that, and I asked somebody to research that and tell me whether that was true or not true and what the mechanism was.
And it's been communicated it is true to a degree, but how can we implement that, and does it meet the exact...
What do you mean by to a degree?
That there appears to be some meetings happening.
Well, I think Lancaster County needs to look into that. Because York County, they're in the same state, so the same state laws would apply. I mean, that's the major complaint I've heard from the Riverchase people, is this argument. And we had talked about this in a July meeting and in an August meeting, and yet we don't have an answer. I also had another question that related to the end of the 2028, and the agreement expires, and we were supposed to get a legal opinion if the fire station is still on the books, even if they don't hit 250.
And there's, yes, been a conversation about the land Oh, I got you. Yes, per the agreement, the land is subject to donation. The payment is in question. If they don't reach the 250 mark, does the payment have to be made?
What was the legal opinion on that point?
It depends.
As far as the development agreement reads right now, it says they have to reach that mark in order for that money to be passed over.
So in the sunset clause, if they don't hit the 250, that's out the window.
According to the
your-
way the development agreement is currently written, yes, sir.
Okay. Yes.
Is it any way that a revision can be done with that development agreement to meet the needs of the Riverchase residents?
Well, there's still part of the agreement to be played out. I mean, as was highlighted, we've had some conversations about, are they prepared to pay the money or turn over the land? They've generally said yes, they're ready to turn over the land. They haven't given a time frame on the money. We can go back and press them some more about, is there a date specific by which we can plan on them? So there's still more in the agreement to play out existing before 2028.
But we're running out of time for one reason. We're running out of time. We know we will not get to that number before time runs out. What I'm asking is, what are our options and what can we do in the meantime to make sure if we're going to move forward with any other agreements that they do what they do what's going to be best for the residents of Riverchase?
And I'd say option number one is get them to live within the existing agreement and see if we can get a time frame.
And any other options?
Then you fall back to option two about the 2028, but there's also more requests from them about how far out is phase 2 and phase 3 going to go, and then what's the impact if you do phase 2 and phase 3 with or without a development agreement. So there's a few more questions to play out in terms of where they are in that process.
Remind me again of the time frame within this agreement.
2008 to
No,
2028.
28.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a little less than 4 years, right? Okay.
So what happens if they don't sell the 250 by 2028?
No penalty or recourse is identified in the current agreement.
So, can I chime in? So, under section 3.03 of the development agreement, it says that the county may apply certain laws if certain conditions are met. Is that something that we've looked into and that may apply?
We'll have to get back with you because I'm not sure about where the current conversation's been with their current requests for phase 2 and phase 3. So I don't know the status of certain laws have been applied as they've been going through that process. So let me get back with you on that.
Or laws that we can implement to enforce some of these provisions if the circumstances are met within those 4 or 5 clauses within section A of section 3.03.
Yeah, let's get back with you on that.
I mean, the residents have emailed all of us and highlighted those sections, so we should be aware of them.
You're talking about the health and safety
Yes.
component? And what we've tried to articulate is that that is really more related to home rule and the role of county related to health and safety. But the fact that you have fire service from the Van Wyck Fire, it's hard to argue that there's a health and safety for pure fire, meaning there's service there now. How can we enhance it? And so that's part of the conversation. But when people do see that health and safety provision there, it's kind of more the boilerplate home rule. If something like, for instance, a pandemic came up, do we give some grace because of the time frame on the agreement or do some things differently because of the pandemic? That's a health and safety.
So it says health, safety, or welfare. Okay.
I guess my concern is that the time is drawing near and the developers are taking their time in making a decision. I don't want us to wait until the last minute and we find ourselves, without any options, nowhere to move, don't have any recourse to take. but I'm sure with the other phases that's coming up, we can barter this. I mean, they want additional phases and development. So we've got some options here. We just may have to use those in our negotiations.
And part of the factor is the development agreement didn't contemplate people buying and not building. And so there are more lots for sale within this phase, and there are lots that can be developed to get up to that 250. But we can't dictate the time frame of when somebody's going to have their construction company build a house. So it didn't contemplate that as part of the development agreement.
They pull a permits when it.
Right, yeah, decent permit.
So anything?
All right, now I'm going to go on to the resolution, which I thought I was going to have input into, but I didn't. I'm going to change this resolution to take these building funds that we got dedicated to non-recurring public safety fund in the Lancaster General Fund, and I want it to specifically be dedicated to the impacted area, which is the Van Wyck, defined by the Van Wyck Fire District Alliance.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we have a motion yet on this, so
We do not.
Mr. Graham's amendments will have to be made after that's done.
That's fine, I'll make an amendment, but that's what I'm going to suggest.
So you call?
We need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. McGriff and a second by Mr. Luis. We're now on the floor. You can make your amendment.
My
Mr. Graham.
amendment's going to be that the building fees authorized by Section 4.02 of River State, the state's development agreement, be dedicated to non-recurring public safety in the Van Wyck Fire District. And it's not just for fire, it's for public safety. And I would like also to add that approval of spending those funds be approved by council.
Okay, we have an amendment. We have a second.
A second.
This is future funds, right?
Pardon me?
Future funds,
It is future funds.
right.
Hey, Mr. Chair, could we have Chair to read that amendment back so we can?
Might need to
Did
be
you get
dressed up a little bit.
Why does everyone look at me? The
I've got
attorney's
it.
there.
Did you write it?
No, I just.
But you get the gist of what I'm.
I believe, Mr. Graham, did you say dedicate, the building fees dedicated to public safety in the Van Wyck Fire District area approved by County Council?
Yes.
You said the fire district.
Non-recurring public funds, because that's typically what other development agreements specify.
And I second that. I just want to make sure it was
We
clear.
have to approve it.
And it has to be approved by county council.
I think you read that part.
All right, we have an amendment that has been read. We have a second. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, passes unanimously, 5-0. Okay, now we move back to the main motion. We have a motion to approve. Oh, we already have a motion, sorry. Ms. McGriff and Mr. Luis. All those in favor of the main motion, please raise your right hand.
As amended, Mr.
As amended, yes.
Okay.
Passes 5-0. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8C, public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2024-1930, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 2024-1910 relating to the appropriation of funds and the approval of a detailed budget for Lancaster County for the fiscal year beginning July the 1st, 2024, and ending June the 30th, 2025, to further provide for revenues and expenditures during the fiscal year and to provide for matters related thereto. This motion passed 6-0 at our September meeting and 6-0 at our October meeting. Ms. Harris.
Good afternoon, council members. We are back with the third reading of this amendment, and it's a two-part amendment, with the first being to authorize the utilization of $950,000 in our general fund balance for the upfit of the co-located fleet and voter registration building. And there was an amendment in the second reading to adjust that so that any amount above the $75,000 for architectural cost, we would come back to council for approval to move forward with an expense. Since second reading, we have entered into a contract for the architectural work. The amount for that contract is actually $85,000. And so in addition to the $85,000, there are expenses that we've already identified for IT and communications, for locks and alarms and technology setup, for an estimated total of about $102,500.
Total, correct.
All right, and in addition to that amendment, we're asking to authorize the designation of the Old English District as the recipient of the 30% of the Lancaster Tourism and Promotion Funding. That amount at first reading was $58,739, and we're asking for council to designate the Old English District as the recipient for those funds.
Okay, we have a public hearing. No one signed up for that, so I will declare the public hearing closed. Okay, we'll move on to, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Graham and a second from Mr. Mosteller. Are there any discussion?
We would like to ask for that amendment. We're actually finishing the protest period for the architectural services, where it actually looked to be $85,000, and then what we've done for the locks, alarms, if council be willing to take your initial limit of 75 to make an amendment to 102.5, and then anything else we come forward, we'll bring you the plans back once the architect's engaged to do approval for the expenditures for the rest of the upfit program.
How big is this building?
16,000 square feet with the bays, I believe.
So we need, you say you need an amendment?
Yeah, if you wouldn't,
Motion
yeah.
to amend to add the additional funding.
To authorize 102,500 right now. You've identified the 950, but you're only authorizing
I'd make a
portions.
motion for that amendment.
I'm sorry, and these are just the architectural plans for 85?
Yeah, they'll engage the architect to do the design for elections and fleet.
And who is the architectural firm? Is that something we can say?
We can't say right now during protest period.
Okay.
You need a second to that.
We have a motion from Ms. McGriff. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Mosteller. Have any discussion on the amendment?
Well, we realize here that we've got some changes in it, in our original costs. And if we're gonna move forward with this renovation, we need to move forward and accept the recommendation and move forward. There's really nothing else we can do right now.
Any other discussion? Not, I call for the.
I just for the record, I do not like that we're already adding 10,000 for the architectural fees. I think 75,000 is a significant amount. I see architectural fees for around 35, 40,000 for a building that's larger. Granted, there are some additional things that we need to do with this that makes, but 75,000 seemed very, very reasonable. To now increase that 10,000 more is a red flag for me. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware. I am concerned about cost creep already starting at the very beginning of this. So I will support this, but let's sharpen the pencils and start looking at where we can have some cost savings on the back end.
Any additional comments? Not, we'll call for the vote on the amendment. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. And we'll move back to the main motion as amended. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8D, which is a public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2024-1932, an ordinance to amend a development agreement with Century Communities Southeast LLC in accordance with the Unified Development Ordinance, sections 9.2.18.c-16-c and section 5.02 of ordinance 2023-1854, to extend the effective date of the agreement to December the 31st, 2025. We do have one person signed up for the public hearing, Mr. Gordon Johnston. We'll declare the public hearing open.
Good evening. Gordon Johnston, 7401 Carmel Executive Park Drive, Charlotte 28210. Obviously here tonight representing Century Communities on behalf of this request. Really have nothing new or additional to offer or add from the prior two readings on this request, but did want to let you know that myself, along with our entitlement manager, Bryce Dimitruck, are here this evening, available for any discussion, or if there are any questions you would like us to come back up for and address, we'd be happy to do so. So thank you, obviously, for your time and consideration of this request of the project. And again, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Okay, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We'll move on to, we have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. McGriff and a second from Mr. Luis. Any discussion?
Well, I'm not going to support it. I didn't support the rezoning. I thought that the development agreement was not a very good development agreement to negotiate with the county because there's no fees in there for public safety.
Any additional comments? Not, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, passes 4-1. Okay, we'll move on to item 8E, public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2024-1934, an ordinance to approve a temporary construction and permanent easement grant to Lancaster County Water and Sewer District upon real property owned by Lancaster County and located in the regional park off Norman Forest Road, bearing tax parcel number 0044-00-024.01, and to authorize county officials to take such actions as are necessary to effectuate the grant of the easements and to effectuate the purposes of this ordinance. We have a public hearing. No one signed up, so we will move forward and declare the public hearing closed. Okay, to have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Mosteller and a second from Ms. McGriff. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, so during the last meeting, I think there was a conversation about changes to the flexibility in the location or waiver of tap fees for the county. Did we address those?
We did in the write-up. We did highlight about the concerns about the park layout related to the water sewer. Mr. Wes Carter's here from the Water Sewer District. The path serves not only the regional park, but serves adjacent properties to it. It does run along the creek because it is a sewer for easement, which is generally where you need for the gravity flow. So the alignment really, excuse me, cannot be adjusted that much. But more importantly, it was communicated that actually the Water Sewer District had intended to have this easement taken care of before we became the landowners, because they've got other connections building off of this. And then the concern about no fees is that generally because the utility rate payers are mostly county taxpayers, we do work with different utilities not to pass on their expenses to the county taxpayer. So we do waive fees back and forth between the utilities on different agreements and different arrangements. And so this is one that we thought continues what we've done other practice about not charging fees so they don't charge it back to their ratepayers, which are our citizens. But also it helps us with some of our things. There may be future issues arise working with the utility where we will be the beneficiary of no fees being collected.
Well, all my years on here, we've always worked with Lancaster County Water and Sewer both ways of helping each other. So I don't see any reason not to pass this. It should be a no-brainer.
So I'm sorry, so just to repeat, so is there flexibility in the easement agreement to allow us to change the easement path if we need it during the development of the regional park?
Generally, no, because the resolution stipulates an actual survey amount. So when we give the easement, that is the amount that we're giving with the proximity, but also knowing that it's a sewer and where the gravity flows along the creek on there, it would be hard for them to adjust the easement differently to get the gravity flow without lift stations and other
So
things.
the answer is no.
Right.
Okay. So did we receive robust due diligence on this property?
You mean the overall 84 acres?
Yes.
What we've outlined before you in park presentations, I think, where we've had a list of 12 different things from geotech to appraisal to different understanding of like this easement and different things. So yeah, we've done different components.
So we received robust due diligence on it?
I think we've done sufficient. I mean, we've done our due diligence as required.
Okay, it's a yes or no. Have we received robust due diligence?
It's your
Yes. Yes,
Well,
we've done the geotech. She can outline all the stuff.
We received the geotech report that indicated that this land was topographically challenging, correct?
Yeah, if you want to go through when she did the park presentation, we had a whole list of the due diligence if you want to go through some of that.
Did we get that before we bought the property?
We did. We did. It was about a year before, if I remember correctly.
Yes. The only thing that I wanted to just also add is that Woolpert took into consideration the easement. So they actually have designed the layout in anticipation of that. So.
But Woolpert also designed the plans when they should have known the topography of the land, and now we have to revisit the plans that Woolpert designed because they didn't take into account the design or the topography of the land.
The plan basically there was a lot of community input. It took what the community said they wanted, and they laid it out. And then and then in the phase that I've been involved in the last year, they've been looking at the engineering. They looked generally at the topography of the site, but then when we actually engaged them to actually start doing the design and development, that's when the engineers, civil, it was a more deeper dive. So I do think that it would be somewhat of a misnomer to say that they didn't take into consideration. When they did the initial plans, they're just really looking at what it is that the council said and the community said that they wanted, and then master plan that, which is very different than actually then going to development, design, and sketch.
I understand that, but just looking at the topography, clearly there were some challenges on what we could do, and clearly there were some surprises that shouldn't have been surprises because we knew about them a year before we purchased the land. So I guess in my perspective, if we're looking at these design elements, what I'm hearing is Woolpert designed them in a bubble. He took whatever people thought they wanted and put them in an imaginary fairyland where everything would work.
Well, master planning does have a certain level of
Fairyland
imagination
dust?
in that. Yes, a little bit of dust.
Okay.
But also, we directed them with what we did. We purchased the property, and then we asked them to design it.
Yep.
So they've only done what we've asked them to do.
But we also had a budget.
Right.
We've also waited, and the longer you wait, you add dollars to it.
So we purchased this land from Lennar, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then we approved the Lennar community right next to this property, correct?
I'm not having been here. I don't want to say.
I think we approved that
At about the same time.
We
approved it around the same, but we have approved a Lennar community next door to this project.
Yeah, it was, I believe it was approved before the park, and this is in my district, so I have pretty good recollection of that process.
So, and this easement will benefit the adjacent property owned by Lennar?
I would assume so, yes.
Also benefit the commercial on 521, I would think.
I'm sure it's going to help the whole area up there. It ain't just going to be one little particular spot. I mean, it's going to the whole.
I'm just pointing
Across
out
the
that
road and everything.
we purchased land from Lennar that had topographical challenges. We now have a community by Lennar next door to the property. We are now granting an easement for a sewer line where we haven't clarified any flexibility for us in the event that it becomes a challenge for us as we develop the park, yet it benefits Lennar. Correct?
Would you like to hear from the Water Sewer District?
Nope.
Because they've got
I just wanted to lay down those facts.
I don't think it's any other way around it, Jose, as far as, it's things that we've got to work together with, and I think this is one of them. Because if we decide that we're going to charge or have everybody responsible, whatever, we will never be able to agree on an easement because I think, as Billy said, it's going to benefit the whole community, the whole area.
And going back to when the park, when we bought this property, we know there was topo issues, but it was going to be built in stages. We were going to put part of it and then a little bit later do another part. But then it was decided to do the whole thing at one time. And that's when the issues come in, I'm sure, having to try to just develop the whole thing. But it was originally brought to do it in different stages. They was going to do part of it up there, and then there was going to be some more grading later to put in some more stuff, which probably would have worked out a little bit better because you could have done this part and then down this level done another part or whatever. That's the way it was originally designed when we talked about when we purchased this. Brian might remember it. You remember? But like I say, is doing the clear cutting the whole thing now, doing all the grading in there, I'm sure has run the cost up because it ain't going to be done in levels. It's going to be done in a whole one park. So I'm sure that's part of the escalation of our money. So.
Since this is running along the creek, I would assume that it's within the buffers that we can't develop in the creek anyway. Is that correct?
Thank you.
The result of the tap fees,
What was the
the
question with the
tap fees, I mean, is the water district going to give the county taps into it at no charge?
There
You're
will
going
be.
to waive the tap fees. My attorney told me the right word. What's the answer to that question?
Not his attorney.
Well, we haven't got that far yet to know how
Well,
many.
they're here. They can answer it now.
But
No, we hadn't got that, but you don't.
All right, that's good enough. He answered.
He said it's a turn.
Okay, do we have any additional discussion?
No one's attorney.
I'm going to miss him, too.
Call for the question.
Okay, we've called for the vote on item 8E. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, passes 4-1. Mr. Luis opposed. Okay, we move on to item 8F, second reading of ordinance number 2024-1925, an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapters 2 and 5 to amend regulations relating to backyard pens and coops. Ms. Harden, I didn't see you here earlier. You must be hiding over behind the counter.
Stick me in the corner now. So, second reading of this ordinance. The ordinance started out at the last meeting as something totally different, and it's absolutely your right and privilege to change it, which you did. But after the meeting, it was pointed out that there are still a section of the code that relates to backyard pens and coops that would likely need to be amended to make sure that by removing all of those rules that we're not accidentally trying to implement them or not implemented somewhere. So there were two options. One was to remove backyard pens and coops from the use table altogether, but that would then lead down the road to a potential of someone saying, well, if it's not in the use code, it's not allowed. So rather than do that, we proposed this amendment, which makes it permitted across the board, which I think is what the intent was by removing all of the regulations under 510.4. That means that everyone can do it and there's no restrictions on it. Now, if that doesn't meet the amendment, I'd be happy to take down notes and bring you back on third reading and a further amendment to it.
Yeah, I think the gist of our conversations is that HOAs will basically set their rules and.
Right. And we're not involved in the HOA rules at all. That would make them civic issues.
So I had one additional comment on that. So when we deleted section 5.10.4, we also deleted some language that prohibited exotic animals such as tigers, lions, bears, leopards, and other similar animals. Is that covered somewhere else, or do we need to add that back in?
You can add it back in during the UDO rewrite.
Okay. Is that something that we should do now as part of this amendment, or would you rather?
That's up to you.
But to your point, it would be permissible to have those if it's taken out tonight or at third reading.
I will make an amendment to add it back in.
I don't think we have the motion in the second yet to bring this to the floor.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Mr. Graham, a second from Mr. Luis, and I believe Mr. Luis has a motion, amendment he wants to offer.
Yeah, so I propose that we do the amendment that Ms. Harden has suggested regarding section 2.5.3, and in addition, that we keep in section 5.10.4 the language regarding the restriction or prohibited animals of exotic animals such as tigers, lions, bears, leopards, and other similar animals that are not allowed in any zoning district in Lancaster County.
Okay, we have an amendment motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Graham. Do we have any discussion? If not, we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, it passes 5-0. We'll move on back to the motion as amended. Do we have all those in favor? Raise your right hand. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. I would like to point out that a lot of folks have been calling, saying, well, they removed it so I can do what I need to, right? It's not removed until third reading. I'd like the public to understand that it's not finished until third reading.
All right, thank you. Okay, we move on to item 8G, second reading of ordinance 2024-1937, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of Lancaster County to rezone two parcels, one being located at 8123 Charlotte Highway and zone neighborhood business, and one being located at 137 Dogwood Trail and zone medium-density residential, both proposed to be rezoned to regional business district for the purpose of combining lots under unified ownership and operation. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Mosteller and a second from Mr. Graham. Any discussion?
This is in my district. I have not heard any feedback, negative feedback. And like I said at the first reading, the property on 521 is well kept, and I'm sure there will be improvements to the property in the rear of it.
All right, any other discussion? Not, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, passes 5-0.
Would this be available to be put on the consent agenda for next meeting? or do you want to remain on the non-consent?
I don't have any objection to putting it on the consent.
We'll move it to the consent agenda for next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9A, approval of appointment to the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. Mr. John Craig is one of two lodging industry representatives to the ATAX Advisory Committee for a 4-year term that will end on 12/31/2028. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Graham, a second from Ms. McGriff. Any discussion?
I think this would be a big addition. Mr. Craig is well-known in our county and a business leader, and I think this would be a great addition to this board.
Yeah, and he's made significant improvements in any project he's taken on.
All right, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, item 9B, public comment on the Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, or JAG grant for 2024. No one signed up for the public comments. So do we don't need to take any action here, do we? Okay.
Just open and close the public hearing is all we needed.
All right. I'll declare the public hearing open. No one signed up. We'll declare it closed. We'll move on to item 11, executive session. We have 3 items. To receive receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to property acquisition adjacent to Bear Creek Park. Item 2, receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to the leasing of county property for telecommunications equipment. And item 3, receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a contractual matter related to an economic development project. I need a motion to go into executive session for the receipt.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, we also need to add to that to invite the Economic Development Director in.
We'll need to add to the end of all of that to invite the economic director into executive session for the third matter.
So moved.
Mr. Luis
All right, second.
and Ms. McGriff, all those in favor? We are now in executive session. All right. We're out of executive session. Do I need to
Motion to
read
come
your
out.
thing? Okay, motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
It's, motion from Ms. McGriff, second from Mr. Mosteller. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, council met in executive session in regards to 3 items. The receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to property acquisition adjacent to Bear Creek Park. The receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to the leasing of county property for telecommunications equipment. And the receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a contractual matter related to an economic development project block. No motions were made, no votes were taken.
Take a motion to adjourn. So moved. A vote, motion from Ms. McGriff.
I don't think we need a second.
You don't need a second.
No.
Technically, we don't. All those in favor? We're adjourned at 8:01 p.m.
You did good, Brian. You did good.
Thank you.
I was afraid to say anything before.